Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm going to give it a few seconds just to make sure everybody's getting in here. All right, so I see our numbers growing. Well, thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. I am very excited about this conversation that we're going to have. My name is Clara Stroud Vasquez, and I'll be your moderator for today. I am the Director of Heat Culture, and this is my 18th season with the Miami Heat. I oversee a lot of our employee engagement, our DE&I initiatives with focus on our employee development, et cetera, et cetera. It's definitely, my job is very employee focused, and I'm happy to be here with my colleagues. We have some amazing women this afternoon. So in honor of Women's History Month, I'm excited for the opportunity to once again introduce you to more of the amazing women of the Heat. These inspiring women are vital to the Heat group, and today the Women of Marketing take center stage. Woohoo, because that's my department. So I'm even more excited about this. Some of the members of today's panel are currently being featured on the Beyond the Hardwood section on heat.com in a month-long initiative of articles titled Her Story, Women of the Heat. Our discussion today is a great opportunity to dive a little deeper into the topics that those articles talk about, and also hear specifically from the women of marketing. We have a large group today, so we're dividing the afternoon and the discussion into two sessions. We'll be hearing first from Akira DiLorenzo, Lauren Cochran, Chrissy Carey, and Payal Doshi. So I, as always, I'm going to begin with a few questions that have been prepared in advance. And then towards the end, I know that our audience, our participants have submitted some questions for these ladies. So without further delay, let's meet the panel for our first session. Akira, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, everybody.
Akira, tell us what department you're in, what your title is, and how long you've been with the organization.
Sure. So my name is Akira DiLorenzo. I am the Director of Digital Content at the Miami Heat. I've been with the team for 3 years, and my main focus really is branded content and the way that we do all of our digital content in association with our partners, and how we monetize that, sell that, and value that.
Wonderful, Akira. Thank you so much. Next, I'm going to go to Lauren Cochran.
Hi, my name is Lauren Cochran. I am the Senior Director of Interactive Media at the Heat in the marketing department. And my role here is basically managing the digital strategy for all of our distribution channels, from social media to email to web, mobile app, and e-commerce marketing. I also manage our esports property, Heat Check Gaming. And I've been with the organization for about 8 years now, and it's been a wild ride so far.
Thank you for taking the time to chat with us today, Lauren. Christina Carey, Chrissy, I'm going to you next.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I've been with the Heat for about 4.5 years now. I started as a mobile app assistant, and now I'm a internet services coordinator in the interactive media department. I aid in the process of disseminating web content and graphics for the Miami Heat's various website properties like heat.com and aaarena.com, including optimizing the content, ensuring that it's user-friendly while helping to create compelling and content and analyzing traffic to use to analyze our traffic on our web and retail campaigns. Thanks.
Awesome. And last but not least, Payal. I really can't talk today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Payal, and I am the mobile app manager for the Miami Heat app. I curate all the content in the app. I've been part of the organization for 2.5 years now. And I also conceptualize ideas within the app and monitor the back end of our analytics as well.
So ladies, thank you again for joining us. Like I said, I'm really excited to have this discussion with you guys. I know you all pretty well. We're in the same division and I've worked closely with some of you. So I'm going to start in with some questions so that our audience can find out more about you. So I'll start with you, Akira. You were recently featured on the Beyond the Hardwood section of our website in the Women of the Heat, Her Story article, where you mentioned that this was your first role ever in the sports industry. Can you tell us more about what inspired you to consider a career within the world of sports? And has your experience as a woman in sports been what you expected?
Well, it's interesting because I actually applied to this job on a whim, very much on a whim. So it wasn't like a plan, like I want to be a woman in sports. I'm a journalist and now a marketer, and I didn't see it as a barrier. Like I was like, there's this amazing job at the Heat. So I'm just going to go for it. And I applied and I got the job, and I've been working in this role for 3 years. And when I did have a moment of like, well, I'm not a sports specialist. So I was like, well, it was more of less about me being a woman and more about, do I know enough about this world to succeed at this? And it turns out I do, because I have other leverageable skills. And I think sports, like any other industry, is male dominated. And it's not just because the sheer amount of men in the industry, it's also because the amount of men in power in the industry. I think in marketing, we have a different dynamic. I think in marketing and throughout in all industries, right? At the Heat, we have a lot of women in leadership roles in marketing. So my experience wouldn't be as, I think, exemplary as other women in sports that are in other areas of the business. We have Jennifer Alvarez and Lorianne and Clara, and like we have all these women that really help elevate us and represent our different, I think, experiences and points of view. So in that way, I don't think I felt, I guess a part of the minority in terms of gender. So I guess to answer is, I didn't know what to expect, but it's been a very positive experience throughout. And I definitely feel represented and given a voice in this organization, which has been very positive.
I think that's great. That's a great point, and those are great points. Representation does matter, and having people in leadership that look like you and that type of thing definitely shapes your experience. So Lauren, I'm going to move on to you. What sparked your interest in marketing, and how did you end up joining the Miami Heat?
So my interest in sports in general went back a long ways. I used to go to many sporting events, and aside from the play on the field, I was so interested in all of the people in the arena or the stadium and like how all of that came together. So when I went to school, my university, George Washington University, had an awesome sports management program, and there wasn't that many of these programs when I was going to school. But the professor that ran that department was extremely well connected and really exposed to like every part of the business: sports teams, companies that associated with sports teams, the Olympics, media broadcast partners, everything. So I got to like dip my feet in every single part of that. But when I started my career, I started off in customer service, and I managed accounts for season ticket members. And that's what a season ticket used to be. It used to just be tickets. So that's what I started doing. I got my foothold however I could in the sports industry. And like we've seen, sports teams have really evolved. A season ticket is so much more than just holding a ticket and going to a game. It's an entire program built out and marketed to you, and getting to know you and being able to give you experiences that you really value. So as sports teams and season ticket packages evolved, so did my job. And that's where I started to leverage the different points of evolution to kind of insert myself into the marketing department. And I chose a digital route because I kind of caught that wave when it was just starting, and I rode that wave even till today, we're developing new things all the time that I get to have a front seat to and help steer that ship.
Yes, our industry has definitely changed, and the packaging experience has grown so much that's what is needed. People who can kind of think to how to create that experience and how to grow that experience and how to incorporate digital and how to utilize our digital platform. So shout out to you for taking such a front seat in that, and also shout out to you for going to university in DC, because you know how I feel about the District of Columbia.
Right.
Moving on to you, Chrissy. Tell us what a day in the life of your role is like. What is your day-to-day at work like? And I'm sure it changes with everything we have going on.
So much. So as a, website coordinator, it entails a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of debugging, updating, and, constant communication with the web developer and other departments. The interactive media department acts as a 24/7 news cycle. So I'm constantly checking my phone for trending news and updates that may come up in our email boxes or what have you. I would say I troubleshoot our web pages and our Adobe Analytics while making sure our pages maintain optimized and user-friendly and accessible at different viewpoints like mobile and tablet web views and the other pinpoints of, different various mobile screens and stuff like that. With this job, it entails updating the Heat's various website properties that includes hard coding some pages. And we also use a content management system to update a lot of the copy and to upload the videos and the graphics that you see on heat.com or aaarena.com. I also track our website analytics and see how our campaigns are performing and generating the right traffic and website traffic to those campaigns. So I'll say I'm constantly updating, our various web pages, from community event recaps, new arena show announcements, retail deals, ticket deals, call to actions, just making sure our website is generating the traffic we want while creating redirect links or short links, making sure those links have the proper tracking so that we can analyze those links. And so with this job, I'm always learning. And if it's about web analytics, data, to new coding languages, various applications evolve and technology evolve as the years go on. So I've honed in on having a growth mindset with my role. And that's why I love this job so much, because I'm constantly evolving and it keeps me, on my toes all the time.
If our audience hasn't figured this out, I got the tech queens with me right now, which I'm not. So I love listening to the four of you guys talk, because you're talking about things and I'm like, what is that? I need to learn about that. What am I doing with my life? So I'm really just enjoying your knowledge and the things that you know. But in addition to being tech queens and knowing that aspect of the business, there is creativity that comes with it. You are in marketing. So Payal, a large portion of your responsibility as a MoMA content manager is actually content creation. And where do you find the inspiration for your creativity and ideas?
I find a lot of inspiration through scouring through the social media platforms and seeing what's trending. And also, I'm looking at the team as well, seeing the ebbs and flows of the team, how they're performing. A lot of the wins and a lot of the successes, we can really bank off the individual successes of the players. So I definitely do find a lot of inspiration in that. And the personalities of the players, I find, is something that I really try to hone in on as well. Media Day is a great avenue in which we kind of go about thinking of ideas and putting them into action and kind of rolling with them and seeing how they're going to materialize on our platform. Some of the historic pieces are also things that inspire me as well. For example, we had an opportunity during Dwayne Wade's retirement to do this really cool AR feature with our in-house Tip Off magazine, where we were able to bring him to life and kind of have him direct you to a call to action within the magazine. So we're able to do these cool and interactive things within the mobile app that I find is exciting and that will enhance our platform as well as the users who are coming to the platform as well. And I'm also inspired by other teams and what they're doing. And I get a lot of inspiration from, and I take a lot of inspiration from what they're doing and then see how I can make it my own. So those are some of the avenues in which I find I'm creating content.
And sports is definitely really collaborative, right? So we simultaneously compete and collaborate with a lot of different sport properties and other teams. So that it's pretty cool in that respect. And I feel like I'm special because I do know what AR stands for, augmented reality. So I'm not as much of a tech dummy as I kind of portray, but I thought what you guys did with the augmented reality stuff with Tip Off was amazing. So Akira, you mentioned that you're new or newer to the organization, but you are one of our leaders. So tell us more about your role in advocating and empowering the next generation of women leaders. You're muted. Yes.
Sorry, I think I was muted. It comes from a place of appreciation. I didn't get here by myself. I wasn't born standing up. I've had a lot of leaders, female leaders, family members teach me, coach me on how to grow. I've had people have hard conversations with me about like behaviors or things that I was doing that were not good for me at some point in my career. And those were hard, but they're really necessary. So the way I look at it is I kind of look at it in three ways. There's coaching, there's mentoring, and there's sponsoring, which I actually just learned about that I actually do this, but I didn't know what it was. So I look around I look at my surroundings in the organization and I'm like, well, you know, sometimes there's a female colleague who is amazing and just needs a little coaching or needs someone to advocate for her and showcase her skills. And I like to find those people and like position myself to help them either they already have a voice, but showcase that voice or invite them to the table, the proverbial sit at the table. Because it's not just for that person, it's for the entire organization benefits when we all sit at the table. Like we talk about women as like we talk about race in a monolith, like women, right? But we're not just women, we're Hispanic women, Black women, straight women, cis women, gay women, like there's so many transgender women, like we're representing all walks of life or 50% of the population. So you can imagine how many nuances and layers we all have. And the more that we bring each other to the table to talk about, not just from a perspective of gender, but all those other nuances, the better and the richer the organization is going to be. So I look at it that way. If there's any coaching, if there's like, hey, I saw this thing and maybe I can help you develop that better, then I do that. If there's an opportunity and I know a fellow colleague that's like, she would be amazing for that, I will sponsor and like put my reputation there because I know that she's worth it and she will kick butt at that job. But I think it's up to all of us to do that, whether we're male or female, with our colleagues and bring them to the table and understand that they're not just bringing their knowledge or their skills, but they're bringing their life and all of the nuances in between, and that enriches everybody.
So true. There's a lot of intersectionality that happens at the intersection of being a woman and a minority or a woman and an immigrant or whatever it is. So definitely having your board and having those people who are your cheerleader and your mentor and et cetera is important. I don't think a lot of us learn that earlier on in our career, that you need to have a board that kind of influences and helps you move through. Everybody's like, oh, let me get a mentor, but it's like that sponsor is important, that cheerleader is important. There are different roles that different people can fill to assist you in moving along in your career. And Lauren, you and I have probably been in the sports industry a similar amount of time. In your opinion, how has the sports landscape changed since you've started your career?
so much. I guess we've been in it for a little longer than we want to admit. I have to be honest, in the lens of looking at it through women in sports, I feel I've been a little sheltered. I was hired by a woman. I rose through the Philadelphia Flyers organization with women bosses, and have always had people in leadership positions, women, both companies that I worked for in sports, and actually even through internships. I've always had a woman leader. So I'm probably a little jaded and sheltered because I've just worked for two great organizations that truly see the value that women can bring to sports. But not all organizations are created equal, and it's not that across the board. And Akira brought up a lot of great points. And I think just in the last couple of years, we're starting to see the first female referee in sports doing a Super Bowl, or the first woman coach, or the first woman assistant coach. And these things are amazing to see. And they didn't exist 15 years ago. But I do feel really privileged and honored to always have a strong woman mentor or a strong woman sounding board in my career to help advance me and teach me the way, or pave a path for me, or help me bulldoze my own path. But I do think, as far as women in sports, we've come a long way. I think there's still a very long way to go, but I'm so pleased to see that there are women presidents now, that there are women hitting coaches and batting coaches and pitching coaches and things like that out there. There's women kickers on football teams. And I think that's amazing to see. I think that people are starting to see that we don't have to look at this as a divide of what men can do and what women can do. It is what we can all achieve. And like I said, there's still some more to go, but I think that the Miami Heat do a fantastic job as an organization, and I'm proud to be a part of that one. So
You're right. I think it's refreshing to see women stepping into spaces that we weren't in before, and it not being a novelty anymore to see us in certain spaces. And leadership and mentorship is important. So Chrissy, tell me, have you ever had any strong female leaders? And if so, how have they shaped your development?
I'll say most of the women on this panel today are strong leaders, period. Lauren, she's my supervisor. You've even mentored me. I would say throughout my life, thankfully, I have had a lot of great female leaders, but I would say the main one who has shaped my development, I would say, is my mother. She is strong and gracious, and she exemplifies herself with elegance. She moved from Miami, from a small town in Anniston, Alabama, and she wanted to create another lifestyle for herself in the travel industry. And so she didn't complete college. She wanted to prioritize her family, and that alone takes so much commitment and bravery and courage. And so she is my driving force. She motivates me. She prays for me. Whenever I'm going through any situation, she's there for me. She has shaped my development and showed me what a true leader is and what it takes to manage a small business and still go to a 9-to-5 every day. And I just love her attitude. Even in the mornings when she wakes up, she makes sure she beats her face and she has her best self on. And I feel like I try to embody that even in my spirit and as I go on my day-to-day throughout work. So hi, Mom. I know she's out here listening.
Well, I think your mom should be very proud. You're doing a great job representing her and bringing what you're learning to us in the office. And that's also important, right? Bringing your whole self to work and bringing the things that make you to work. And it's part of my role and part of, that thing that is Heat culture, which is so hard sometimes to explain to people who don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So Payal, tell me, in your opinion, what role do women play in our Heat culture?
I want to shout out my mom too. Hi, Mom. I think women play an integral part in Heat culture. We are the backbone of Heat culture, I would say. We have the ability, it's so refreshing to see having these women in leadership positions where they can make decisions. We have women who are our mentors, who champion us, who influence us to grow, to and motivate us to succeed. And I think that's really important. And we also, I feel, are at an equal playing field, and we get to showcase that at work and across whatever platforms we are on as well, and what we are doing across the board too. And I think that that is what epitomizes us as women in culture.
And I thank you guys for that, because for me, who's the, I guess, chief culture bearer, it's definitely wonderful to have women who support our culture, embody our culture, pass it on to the next generation, so that I'm not sitting there like, oh my goodness, how am I doing this? You guys really do support me, and you support the organization and our beliefs and our attitudes and who we are. So I'm gonna go to you, Akira. Going back to, this is, you know, you're newer in terms of your tenure with the Heat, but you've accomplished a lot while you've been here in such a short time. Tell me what some of your proudest accomplishments are with the Heat so far.
So I was hired to be the content director. And when I was interviewing, Jennifer, my boss, and I were really talking about what the position was. And I remember thinking, okay, this is a lot. There's a lot of stuff that we got to tackle. We've got to like really change the way we look at digital and digital content and our platforms. And that was actually one of the things that attracted me to the position, because I was like, while I'm not a specialist at basketball, I understand digital media and distribution and content creation and actually monetization really well. So I was like, okay, I have a lot of stuff to bring here. I'll figure out the other stuff later. When I started, I think I started more as a change agent than anything else, which was like, let's look at the organization, let's look at the way we do things, let's take it all down, challenge a lot of people, ruffle a lot of feathers, and then kind of rebuild things in a way that we all see them communally as the best way to move forward. And to me, that became like the flag that I was flying under, of like, I'm going to change all of this. And in conjunction with a lot of people, because you need to get everybody on board to create a lot of change. So that was challenging and really fulfilling when it actually happened. And then eventually got to a point where I was like, okay, now that I've helped shape this and build this in a way that we feel is been more beneficial, I guess, to what we want to do. Now what do I do? Right? I'm not a basketball specialist, so I can bring in as many ideas on how to shoot things, on how to capture things, in a way to distribute things, and some storytelling. But there are other people in this organization that are better equipped to tell a story about basketball than I am. So, and this is where I think I'm the most proud of this moment, is being able to look around and being, okay, what is the next thing that I can really do? And I realized that we really needed to tackle, how are we going to monetize value and sell our branded content, right? We want to create a business model here, and we want to be really successful at it. And that's something that I actually happen to know how to do. And then when I didn't know, I found out and I learned. And then I was able to create a model, and I was able to teach people how to do it, and look to my counterparts and enrich something, an idea or a concept that I already had, and build on that. And now I'm really proud of what we've built in that area. Like, we've grown a lot of revenue in that area. And it's something that I'm starting to create like an internal team in. And I was able to actually with the help of Lauren, identify another person in our team that was probably really good at this, and then bring her in and coach her and build her with me. And now we're like forging that front together. And it feels really, really good. It feels really good to be good at something. It feels really good to find success in an area, and to be able to show the organization like this is our baby. This is what we built. We built it together. And it brings me a lot of satisfaction to be able to do that.
And I think it's amazing that you've not only been able to do that, but you've also been able to find somebody else and kind of bring them along and get them into the process. And so lowering the ladder and opening the door for the woman behind you is so important.
Major
in order to, exactly, in order to get us into these spaces that we're not in currently or have never been in before. So Lauren, as somebody who has been in sports for a little while, what is one piece of advice you would offer to a woman looking to break into the marketing industry, the sport marketing industry?
I think we just had Akira write a book on that. First of all, I mean, her answer was perfect for that. First, you do not have to be a sports person to be in the sports industry. I'm going to dispel that myth right there. I happen to enjoy sports. I happen to know sports, maybe at a higher level than Akira does, but that doesn't make me any more qualified to do my job than anybody else. So you got to know your craft. And I think the other part of it is, as Akira said, she came in here as a director of digital content, and she carved out the things that she saw there was missing. She identified the gaps and she filled them. So she expanded her role just by taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture and seeing where you could help an organization. So like entry level, I definitely tell people networking is a huge part of this. It's a very small industry. There's only 30 of us that do what we do in the NBA of each position, basically. Maybe a little bigger in some other areas, but finding those people that can help advocate for you and at least make those introductions where you can make that case of, hey, I have a really great idea. A great idea can get you in the door. A great connection can get you in the door. But all of these things, I mean, experience does not have to be in sports in order to do it. And we talked about how the sports industry is evolving. It's not just somebody that's good at sports or knows sports. It's now people that know data science. It's now people that are really great at PR or crisis management. It may be somebody that is director of heat culture. That didn't exist before. You made your own lane there. And I think that those are the important things. You don't have to be entry level to get in. You don't have to, you could be the most experienced person. If you can find those places, find those gaps and fill them, you don't even have to find a position that's open. Sometimes pitching yourself and putting yourself out there and finding the right people is the opportunity and the key for you to get into the door. So don't stop talking to people. Don't stop making introductions, even if it's a cold one. I've learned throughout my career, I used to put people in LinkedIn purgatory if I didn't know them. I didn't want to be a connection. And I've kind of learned that, you know what, no matter what connection I have, it could help me somewhere later down the line, or I can help them. So I try not to turn away the people that ask me for advice or need to do an interview for college, for a college class. I try to have those conversations with as many people as I can, because again, some of those people might help me down the line. I could help some of those people down the line. They could be a link to another introduction that could be really key to our organization. So keep your door open and make sure those conversations are happening. I think that's probably the best advice I can give.
That's great advice, Lauren. And I think you're right. You know, you don't have to be a sport person. To me, it's always interesting that I think in the generation before you and I, like our cohort, people were sports people and that's how they came in. But me, I think I'm one of the only sports people out of both of these panels. I'm probably both of these sections of the panel when we bring on our next group of people, I'm probably one of the only quote unquote sport people on here, like who was down the path of becoming a coach and who played, you know, sports in college. So it's really interesting that it definitely has changed. And I think the advice of networking and confidence and knowing your stuff and being confident in what you know is important, because all of you know your stuff and you're really confident in it. And it's been amazing to see how you've just been killing the game during the pandemic, even though we're in the situation that we're in. So speaking of the pandemic, we've all come through this year plus of quote unquote fun and games, right? And I know a lot of what some of you have been doing, but Chrissy, tell us, how have you been taking care of your mental health during the pandemic?
Okay, so the pandemic has been a test of my faith, just to say the least. Thankfully, though, we have great and awesome resources at the Miami Heat. And we have awesome employees that also can listen to me. Kyle is a great, great listener. But yeah, you know, with COVID and the pandemic, there's been a lot of grief and it's been more common. And I was able to take advantage of the resources the Heat provided. They offer therapy sessions that I've started taking, and just speaking to therapists, talking to friends, family. I journal my thoughts. I try to work out more and definitely go outside. Like this past weekend, I did go to like a little boat party just to, refresh my mind and to kind of relax, because it's really important, to take care of your mental health and to just, brighten your day. And so then you can stay focused for the many projects that are coming up.
I'm right there with you. I think we all think therapy is a bad word, and it's like, oh, I don't want to tell people I'll go to a therapist.
Oh,
and
no.
It's like, your friends are not your therapists. I learned that a long time ago. My friends love me, but I can't dump all my stuff on them because they've got their own stuff.
Yeah, that and they're biased.
They are biased, especially my friends, because they love me. So, but my husband's not my therapist. He's got his own stuff, and some of the stuff is about him. So I cannot tout enough the benefits of having that person to talk to, and even about work stuff.
Mhm.
You have that person who's a listening ear, and we definitely have great resources, like, between our EAP and our insurance covers some of our therapy. Like, it's
Mhm.
great to be able to just go to somebody, not worry about it, and kind of unload. So that is important. Working out, shout out to my trainer, who shall remain nameless. You can always hit me up on LinkedIn to find out who she is, but she has been amazing with me working out for the past 10 months, and it's been great for my mental health. So I totally agree with you. Getting outside, taking a deep breath, all of those things are important, and we support each other.
I'll even add in HR. Like, I've even had a great conversation with them one time, and it was Christine and oh God, I have a brain fart, but we had a great conversation. And so shout out to HR. Sonia.
Christine, Sonia, Brett,
Yeah.
John,
Love
all
you
of our HR folks. They are amazing. They do great work, and they support us very well. So shout out to them. And speaking of HR, because this a lot of times falls under HR in a lot of companies, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is my passion place. Pyle, how do you see diversity, equity, and inclusion being valued at the Heat?
I'm about to age myself maybe a little bit, but for 33 years of my life, I grew up in Toronto, which is a melting pot of diversity. And I grew up with people who were various cultures and who had various backgrounds, and we were all able to connect with one another. And when I came over to Miami, when I came in with the Miami Heat, I felt like I was able to bring a little piece of home with me. I come into the environment where I do experience a lot of diversity. Everyone has their own experiences that they bring to the table. There is no judgment. Everyone has respect for one another. And I think that with all that respect and camaraderie, we're able to work together as a cohesive team to really elevate each other and really to help and grow our group and as well as our community through the various initiatives that we are doing right now and that we are going to be doing more of. For example, like this women's panel, and there's so much more that we are doing, what we did with Black Lives Matter and what we continue to do with educating those around us as well. So I feel like I'm really proud to be part of working for the Miami Heat.
I couldn't agree more. I think that we definitely, value people for who they are. And we definitely look for that diversity of thought, which is wonderful to have. The five of us right now on here are all such diverse backgrounds and such diverse experiences, and that's what makes the Heat so rich. So I just want to thank you ladies for chatting with me. We will be seeing you again. I will bring you guys back to talk about some of the questions that our audience asked and submitted, but I really enjoyed our chat so far, and we'll talk to you guys in the second half of the program, or the third half of the program, I guess. And so we're going to move on to introducing the second group of amazing women professionals that we have here today. And I'd like to introduce Michelle Artemes, Devin Rawitzer, Shannon Irish, and Sasha Beck, who will be joining me for the second half of this panel. Ladies, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My other favorite group of marketing ladies. And I will come to each of you and let you introduce yourselves. Tell us what your title is, what your I am having a brain fart right now. I don't know if you guys have figured it out. I think I'm having a mini stroke or something. Tell me what your title is, how long you've been with the Heat, and what your position entails. So now that my mini brain fart is over, Michelle, I'm going to start with you.
No worries, Claire. I think we've all had those moments in these Zoom meetings. Hi, everybody. I am Michelle Artemes. I am the culinary marketing manager for the Miami Heat in the American Airlines Arena. My role is pretty unique. I am basically responsible for telling the food story of our building and of our team. This is now my 4th season with the Heat, my most interesting one yet. My background is pretty diverse, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but I come from about a decade's worth of agency and hospitality marketing experience, and working for and with the Heat has always been a dream of mine, and I'm very proud and honored to be part of this panel.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon, Michelle. Devin, I'm going to move on to you next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Devin. I have also been with the Heat for 4 seasons. I started as the editor-in-chief of our in-game publication known as Tip Off, as well as the Miami Heat Yearbook. And it was, and I hate to say was, an amazing game day magazine that was distributed to all fans at Heat home games. And if you've ever been to a game, then you've definitely seen Tip Off because it's been around since the beginning of time. When COVID hit, everything shifted for me career-wise. So now I'm in charge of our Beyond the Hardwood, which I'm sure we'll touch on later a little bit. But yeah, I'm happy to be here with everyone.
Thanks, Devin. Shannon, I'm going to throw it to you next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon Irish. I'm the senior producer for Inside the Heat. I've been with the organization for 15 seasons now. And a little bit about my role, in charge of our show that documents our players, our coaches, and any special moments that we have going on. It's a documentary style show, and we produce about 11 shows a season.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon, Shannon. And last but not least, our resident plant lady who's getting all my orchids because I keep killing them, Sasha.
I'm actually kind of bummed that you can't see all of the plants that are behind me, but hi, I'm Sasha. I have been with the Heat for, this is the end of my 8th season now. Currently, I'm the senior designer for the creative team, but I started my time at the Heat as a part-time designer for Tip Off, doing what Devin was talking about. And that was in the PR department. It still is considered in the PR department. And then I shifted over to the creative team at its inception season, which, fun fact, the Heat used to outsource all of their stuff to a creative agency called Southern Brand Collective, which I interned as a college student at. And so my role here has definitely been something that has evolved over time, from working outside of the Heat to then working inside the Heat, and then kind of growing with the creative team. I started as a junior designer and then moved up to mid-level, and now I've been the senior designer for 2 seasons.
Thank you for joining us. And it's great to have you working in the organization now and not just outside of it. So my first question is for Michelle. Michelle, culinary marketing, that field is very unique within the NBA. Can you walk us through the purpose of your role and what a typical day looks like for you?
It is a very unique role in the NBA, but the Heat is a very unique organization. We do everything first. We do everything a little bit different, and people kind of follow suit. For me, really, my role is to tell the story of the food and beverage offerings that we have within the building and with the team. Miami is a very diverse city, and Heat culture is Miami culture. And if you're talking about Miami culture, you're talking about food. So a day in the life for me is really to make sure that I'm partnering and working very closely with not just our food and beverage operators, but with our food and beverage partners, getting their story out there, making sure that our fans really understand that when they come into our building, they have the opportunity to have so much more than, you know, your standard hot dog and burger and fries, which we do have. We're not going to take those away anytime soon, but you can also get some very unique items from our partners like Sergio's Cuban Cuisine. You're in Miami, we have to have a Cuban sandwich. We have to have a vaca frita. Our hot dog offerings, we have a Miami dog. It's not just a hot dog. You've got some mojo pulled pork, some crispy chicharrones on top, some fried plantains on it. So it's really just making sure that we have the best offerings that our city has for our fans in our building, and telling that story. And I'm very proud to not just be a part of the organization overall, but to be the one that gets to tell that story, because it's very unique and very diverse, and getting us out into the public's eye and making sure that all of these foodie influencers that we have are talking about our food story. So a day in my life, it involves a lot of food. I'm very lucky. I'm never hungry, to be honest with you, but it is a very unique role within the league. And as I've continued to mature in this role and learn as much as I'm learning, we do have some other leagues that are coming in and asking, hey, how are you guys doing this? Who is this person? How can we partner together? And that's been very fulfilling for me as well. So that's a little bit of what I do and what's involved in it.
And you've been doing a great job keeping us in mouth-watering dishes. That's one of the things I miss about the office. I sit near you, and whenever there's food that you bring up from tastings, we all get to enjoy. So I see some other nods there, because I think a couple of us sit near you and get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So thank you for keeping us in snacks.
There is a strategy to that.
I see you. Devin, you mentioned this a little earlier, and I know it's a tear, pour one out for the homie. But tell us a little bit about Tip Off Magazine, what it is and how it's evolved during the pandemic.
Yeah, so it is very sad, but we don't know if it will ever come back. It might. But Tip Off was a Miami Heat staple. It was essentially a magazine that fans received every home game. And like I mentioned, if you've been coming to games for the past, X amount of years, then you've received one of these. And what it involved was big, beautiful imagery, player quotes, just really exclusive content that you could only get when you came to a Heat home game. And with that being said, I came from an editorial background. I had no prior sports experience. I never worked in the field. I grew up playing sports, but I never worked in sports. And so I had this editorial mindset from the beginning. And I wanted to bring that to the Heat. So when I was hired in this position, I was really excited about the opportunity to breathe this magazine life into an otherwise publication that majority of the NBA uses as an extension to their media guide. I'm almost positive that we're the only team, after all my research and talking with other teams, that actually utilize this magazine for a purpose. And to me, that was just so exciting. It was just such a creative outlet for me. And fast forward 4 years, COVID happens. So I had a very short off season, as we all know, to rethink the entire strategy of the content that fans were consuming inside of Tip Off. We tried to put it digital and it just wasn't the same. It just didn't have the same feel. It didn't have the same fan reaction as it did when it was an in-arena magazine. So thankfully for my amazing leadership, Lorianne and Lorenzo, shout out, I was really able to carve my own path. And I had the opportunity to completely shift my role into a full digital position. So Tip Off, that we all know and love, has now transformed, and it's called Beyond the Hardwood. And what that is a lifestyle hub of the Miami Heat, heat.com, excuse me. And so everything you'll find there is all off the court when it comes to players, community, Heat culture, anything non-stats related. We're really, really good at the basketball stuff, and we have been for so long, but no one's really ever honed in on the lifestyle stuff consistently. So I'm really excited about this new opportunity for me, but it's just been a whirlwind, to say the least. And I'm very excited again, to have awesome leaders that just allow me to, be creative and carve this new role for myself. So, yeah.
And thank you for keeping with our theme of not having to have a sports background and forging your own path, because I think the first half of the panel really did talk about that. And you've done a great job with this Beyond the Hardwood section and providing content that's engaging and new and fresh. And like you said, very editorial, like opening up your Vogue or your Cosmo magazine and reading through the articles. So this most recent feature that you did featured Shannon, which was the Her Story Women of the Heat feature that's been a month-long feature celebrating the women of the Heat and who they are. So Shannon, tell me a little bit about the steps you took coming out of college to achieve the position you have today as senior producer of Inside the Heat.
First of all, shout out to Devin and her team for providing a great space for all of the women to be featured this month. It was such an honor to be a part of it, and I want to thank her. So for me, I went to Florida State, and I went into college not really knowing what I was going to do, but I knew I loved the video camera. So I inquired about that, and I ended up getting into communications with the emphasis in media productions. And the last 2 years that I was at FSU was really focused on creating those moments with a video camera, editing them, and putting them together. Florida State has a huge sports teams. It's known for their sports. So they have a whole entire production. It's called Seminole Sports Magazine, Seminole Productions. You can work the games, you can create features that go on TV. So I really decided I'm going to focus on sports because I know that's the area I want to go in. I did not want to work in news, and I never really saw anything else for me other than sports. So I really honed in on that. And my last credit my senior year was an internship with ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. So I went there for the summer and I was an editor. And then at the end of my internship, I applied for a full-time position and they hired me. So I lived in Connecticut for 2.5 years as an editor. So I worked on all their shows and I put together highlights and packages and pieces. And then I got really homesick and cold. And so I decided to move back to Florida, and there was an opportunity with the Miami Heat that opened up the week that I was moving home. And I met with my boss, Ed Villamia, and he took a chance on me and threw me in the role. And 15 years later, I'm still here.
That's an awesome story, and one I hadn't heard before. So thank you for sharing that. And if our audience hasn't figured it out, if the first part of the panel was our tech queens, this part of our panel is really our creative mavens over here. And so, Sasha, tell me a little bit about what fuels your creativity.
I feel like this is always such a hard question because I feel like it changes so much. And I also feel like there's two different ways that you can answer this. There's the part that like what motivates me to be creative, which to me is like the external factors. And then there's what like inspires me to be creative, which to me is like more internal. It's sort of like the mind versus the heart on like those two sides of that. But, and I don't know if you would agree, Clara, you're around me all the time, but I don't consider myself to be a competitive person at all. I know John Michael would agree with me because he's the most competitive person ever. But something that definitely like pushes me to be a better designer is my peers. I follow a lot of other creators on social media. I think that, you know, being witness to all of the great stuff that other people are doing is extremely motivating for me, being aware of the level of talent that's out there, constantly striving to like meet a bar that literally never stops rising. I think that especially in this past year, there's been like so much impactful work that's being created. And I have a lot of friends, whether from college or through meeting them through other places, that they're working on that sort of work. And like, I see that all the time in my feed and I'm just like, man, like everyone is really, really pushing it right now because I know that there's this just like level of everyone wanting to do better. But collaborating with my team, watching their skills grow continuously, like all of that stuff is like super, super motivating for me. But then there's like the other side of that too, which is like, where does the passion come from? Like, where does the creative passion come from? Like, what is the inspiration behind the work? And I feel like that's like super tough for me to answer because there's obvious things like traveling, which I've done none of this year. And then there's like reading, which I've done a ton of this year. But I just think that like you have to want to create. I think that at the end of the day, like you have to like want to create things. You have to want to be, you know, pushing yourself in that way. And sometimes I don't want to. A lot of times this year, I have not wanted to, especially like just with the struggles, you know, that all of us are going through. I think some of us feel burnt out. I think creatively, I know I've felt burnt out this year, but I think that it's especially hard when like the thing that you love is like your income source too, you know, like it's one of those things where it's like, I love doing this, but it's also how I make money. But I just think that you have to love it. I think like that's the special sauce, is that you just have to love it.
I think that's true. And I think that's important for all of us in this industry is, you know, I teach a class and I talk to my sport marketing students about it. I'm like, this industry is not for the faint of heart. So if you don't love it and love what you do and love the business of it, like I can love watching basketball and all day long. I mean, basketball has been my life growing up. Like I can love it, but loving the business of it is definitely important. And I agree, you're not very competitive because John Michael's my office spouse for a reason, because we're both super competitive. So you're definitely not competitive, but the love is there. And that's what's challenged us this year, right? It's a different environment. It's a lot of stresses and a lot of changes we've had to make. So Michelle, I'm going to turn to you next. Tell me some of the strategic pivots you and your team have had to make this year, especially with the challenge of not having fans in the building at certain points, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, pivot was the word of the year. All we've done this year is pivot. You want me to pick one thing? I think there's two things that I'm very proud of. And one of them was actually last season before the pandemic hit. And that was the introduction and the opening of the Bacardi Ocho Lounge. That was a very unique and very different space for us to open in that building. And we were actually able to bring in what we called a culinary council of chefs. So like I said, when you're talking Miami and you're talking culture and you're talking Heat culture, you're talking food. And we brought in some very big names in the local culinary world, everybody from Chef Carlos Garcia from Ober Kitchen and Chef Demi Lomas and Jose Accardi, and they all contributed to that menu in a very unique way. It was all small shareable plates. That was a strategic pivot for us because we were taking the feedback that we were getting from our fans and from our members and really listening and curating it and making sure that we were executing at the highest level for our premium members. And it was a very, like I said, a very unique way of looking at food and beverage in a sporting arena where we only have 90 minutes or so to feed 20,000 people at a time and making sure that we're executing at the highest level. So I was very proud of the opening of that location. And this year, the biggest strategic pivot that we made was trying to figure out how do we serve food and beverage to people in a space where we are very cognizant and very cautious of the social distancing that we have to maintain in order to keep everybody safe, and making sure that we're still able to feed everybody in that amount of time. And the way that we went about doing that is we are shifting towards a mobile ordering process. That was a big change, not just internally and on the back end for us in terms of what the operation looks like and what the service looks like, but now we have to re-educate our entire fan base, and we have to change a learned behavior that has been a behavior since the beginning of time. When you go to any kind of event, you go to an event, you leave your seat, you take a walk, you find a stand that you like, you stand in front of it, you look for a menu item, and then you go up and you order from a cashier. And we are flipping that completely on its head. And we introduced that about a few weeks ago, and it's been very successful. I'm very, very proud of everybody on the front end, on the back end, the operational end. And for us, that's going to be very important because we are going to be able not just to service our fans in a much faster way, in a much more efficient way, but when it comes down to the business side of it, from an analytical standpoint and business strategic decisions that we can make based off of that data, we'll know in real time, what are people ordering? Where are they ordering it from? How long is it taking them to get that food that they ordered? And for us, that's huge, because for me, especially from the marketing and promotions end of it, I'll be able to say, hey, hot dogs, etc., aren't selling very well in the beginning of the game. Let's send a push notification out. Let's put a campaign together for the next game. And for us, like I said, from a business standpoint, that's huge. That's a very different way of looking at things. So I'm proud of everybody that's done everything in this year. Like I said, pivot was the word of the year, that, and I think you're muted. To me, were kind of the two phrases that I said the most and also heard the most. And I'm very proud of those two things. Like I said, one that was before the pandemic, because there was a lot of work that went into it, and post pandemic, just keeping our members engaged and keeping our fans engaged, and now making sure that we can service them in the best way possible and still keep them safe, but give them the experience that they've come to expect from the Miami Heat, I think are two things that I'm very proud of.
That's awesome. And I'm going to say this thing that we've probably all said the most after that is, which is, I'm sorry, my ... And mine is, I'm sorry, my neighbor has decided to start mowing his lawn right now and waving at me. And I'm like, go away. So I'm very proud of all of you, especially what you've been doing, Michelle, because that's awesome. I think business-wise, it's going to be amazing for us. And it's awesome, again, for you to be able to find a way to get us in a better position strategically, dealing with all of the things that we've had to deal with and kind of evolving our food and beverage. So in terms of shouting ourselves out, Devin, tell me if there's an article or publication that you've been a part of that you're most proud of.
This one's very difficult for me, only because we tip off, now that we're not doing it anymore, I'm looking back and I'm like, these are vintage magazines. I'm like, whoever has these tip offs now, you better be saving them, because we don't know when they're coming back. But I think I have a top two. And the first one would have to be, Pyle mentioned it earlier. Well, she mentioned a piece of it earlier, but we did a Jimmy Butler cover that was augmented reality. And that to me was just so cool. I worked with Pyle and Rodrigo, who's also on her team. And we were essentially able to have fans open up the Miami Heat app, scan their front cover of their tip-off magazine that night. And Jimmy had a special message for them. And that was just such a cool way for me to integrate integrate that technology that we had never used before into a print publication. Again, like Michelle mentioned previously, Miami Heat is always first in everything, and guarantee we were first in that. So that was really cool for me to experience. My second one, I have to, of course, say, was Dwayne's stretch of his final game and his retirement issue. Those were career highlights for me. And this is earlier in my career, 4 years in, but those were 100% career highlights for me. I heard feedback from him that how much he appreciated it. And it was just so cool for me to be able to get handwritten notes from his entire family. I mean, I had Gabrielle, I had all of his children write notes. I had Pat Riley, Coach Spoelstra. So that was just really special. And I wanted to make it special, not just for our fans, of course, that were coming to all these events, but for Dwayne himself, and to hear how much he appreciated it. And to hear that our sports media team gave him 2 boxes full that are, whoever knows, are probably, I'm sure he passed them out to people, but it was really cool for me. So I'd have to say those are my favorite.
That was definitely a special moment and special time. And it was awesome what you guys did with the tip off. I love the augmented reality stuff. So shout out to you and Pyle and the rest of the team that were involved in that, because you guys did a good job with it. So we've talked about our wins and we've talked about pivoting. And in there, we've talked about growth, right? And how you guys have forged your own path and kind of figured out your own, role and growing your own role. Shannon, I'm going to come to you. Tell me a time or a challenge that you've had to overcome while in your role that's helped you grow professionally and perhaps personally as well.
So I had to think about this one for a minute because obviously there are a lot of challenges, but I came up with two that I think are important. One was kind of in the start of my career, and the second one is obviously COVID. So the first one was when I first started working in sports, and I had this fear that I wasn't going to be taken seriously because I was a woman. And I wanted to make sure that I was seen as a professional, that my work ethic shined through, and that when I approached a player or a coach, that they knew I meant business. And it wasn't just because I was a female that they were going to answer me. And so that really wasn't a challenge that they put on me. It was something that I felt personally. I was worried about that. I had great support from my bosses and Michael McCullough and Ed Philemia in having confidence in me. And then, you know, with time, my actions spoke loudly. And now I can say, you know, our PR department, our sports media relations department, our players, our coaching staff, they see me, they know, okay, she's going to make good TV about me. Or they're, you know, call my mom, I trust you. Go to my hometown, I trust you. And so that fear that I had personally really helped me grow in my confidence to know, listen, I know what I'm doing. I'm good at what I do. And people are going to see me and they're going to see my work. And that's the most important thing. And then the second one was obviously when COVID hit. We work for a great organization that was able to, as Michelle said, pivot. You know, my boss immediately designed a way for us to log into our computers at home. And now we're able to work remotely. But for us, we have always been a show that we're with our players in the studio, where we take them out into different areas in the city. We take them to restaurants, to the zoo, we go to their homes. And obviously with COVID, we had to change that. And we've been doing all of our shows this season over Zoom. We just filmed show number 8. And so that's been a challenge for all of my staff and my department, and thinking of ways of how we can still be creative, we can still have great content, and you're still going to enjoy watching it for 30 minutes, even though there's not an elaborate set, we're not in some place really cool, we're just over Zoom. So that's been the second thing that's really been a challenge. And I think my staff and myself, we've really embraced it. And I think that with the help of our players and our hosts and you know, our management, believing that, okay, we can still have great shows, and pushing ourselves to make sure that our content is still up to par, even though it's shot differently, it's been pretty cool to see.
That's awesome. And I think leadership and having leadership there that supports you is important. Even in pandemic times, I think that's important. So the pandemic has challenged all of us. We've all talked about it. Sasha, tell me what has evolved for you personally, though, as a result of the pandemic.
I would love to say my patience, but we had trade deadline last week. And so I don't know that I can say that that's true. Maybe a better answer would be my compassion for other people, especially my coworkers. I think that it's been a challenging year for pretty much everyone in one way or another. I think that it's allowed me to be more intentional in my interactions with others. I mean, professionally in a lot of ways, but also in my personal life. I think that we're getting like an open door to everyone's like home life right now via Zoom, you know, like someone that you would see as like a superior, and now you're seeing them with their kids running through the back. And I think that it's just like having some grace with some people and understanding that we're all trying to figure this out. I think anyone that knows me or is around me in any way at the office knows that I speak pretty openly about like my struggles with mental health, and how I think that it's really important for us to normalize conversations about it. I know that we brought it up a little bit earlier in the conversation in the first panel, sorry, but I do think a lot of people like have sort of embraced that this year, have embraced like talking about those sorts of things and being open to therapy and how it can be helpful. I know that for a long time, I didn't think that it was something that was like an opportunity for me, but like now with the way that we have our benefits set up, it's been great. It's completely covered for us. I think that we all know sitting here that we ask a ton of our employees. I think that we're very aware of like the limits that we go to for our job. And that's great. It's great that we have people and we have an environment and we have team members who are like willing to go above and beyond. But I think that along with the incredible work ethic, you get the burnout. And I think working at home, the days all just blur together. And I think that it's been like really important for me during this time to like make sure that I'm checking in with my team and make sure that I'm like checking in on how they're doing and letting them know that like mental health days are just as important as like physically sick days. And I think, like I said, overall, that's something that has just been important is just like compassion for other people. That I think has been like the number one since this all started. So, I mean, in general, it should be always, but especially right now.
I think you're right. I think the pandemic has kind of changed how we interact with people and what we're making a priority. And it has definitely blurred the personal and the professional in terms of you guys are in my house right now, essentially, which none of you have ever been in my house before. And none of the people watching this have ever been in my house. And I'm actually very guarded about people coming over my house. So it's kind of had to make us relax some of our rules. And I know for me, you know, I'm a somewhat perfectionistic person, so I like things to be in a certain place in a certain time. And in terms of work, that kind of affects it too when we're in the pandemic, that I can't be as, you know, perfectionistic as I want to be when my child's running in or the lawnmower is going outside or my neighbors are at their pool with their music blaring and, you know, my background's not perfect or whatever it is. And that's one of the things I think as women we struggle with as well in terms of how we present and who we are. So Michelle, certain research suggests that some women can struggle with leadership roles due to the fear of being unlikable. You know, that's one of the things, like wanting to be perfectionistic, unlikable, or not wanting to be unlikable. How can a woman deal with this fear? And is this something that you've experienced?
Hit me with the hard questions, Clara. I could take it. Yes, short answer is yes. I think as women, that's something that we've all experienced. I think inherently at the base of it all, we all want to be liked. But I think that when it comes to a professional setting, it's more important to be respected than it is to be liked. And I think that one and the most important way to combat this is confidence. It took me a long time to get to that point. It took me a long time to gain the confidence and have the understanding that I'm here for a reason. I've done my job. I've done my work. I've paid my dues. I know my stuff. There's a reason I was hired. There's a reason I'm at this meeting, at this table. And there have been more times than I can count. It happens more often than not where I am the only female at the table, voicing my opinion and wanting to be heard. But it takes confidence, because with confidence comes respect. If you know what you're talking about, if you have the understanding within yourself that you deserve to be where you are and you deserve to be heard, I think likability comes. And if not, you will eventually yourself come to a point where it doesn't really matter. As long as you respect me, I don't need you to like me. I need you to listen to what I have to say. I need you to understand that I am the subject matter expert in whatever it is you're asking for my opinion on. And I think a lot of people, even on this panel, you know, if I have an opinion, you're going to know about it. You might not like it, but at that point, to me, I have a hard time keeping my own mouth shut sometimes when it comes time to those opinions, because again, I have the experience and I was brought here for a reason. And I think that as women, that's something that we really need to work on ourselves is gaining that confidence. And it's something as simple as stop saying, does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? We discussed it in several other panels. It's something that I've read several times, or putting in an email, just wanted to check in. That demeans our own confidence. That allows the other person that you're speaking with to question you. And you don't need to be questioned. If you're following up on something, it's because something was needed. You requested something and you haven't seen it yet. I need to know where this is. Please give me an update. Thanks. That's all you need to say. And again, it took me a very long time to get to that. I've been working now for, like 15 years. And in the beginning, all of my emails started with, hey, hope everything is going well and that your puppy is safe and sound and that he's still super cute. That doesn't matter. It's, hi, this is what I need. This is when I need it. How can I help you help me? Thanks. Have a great day. So I think I read this question a few times, and for me, it's just a confidence that you have to instill in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. And with that, everything else will fall into place. And the understanding that on a personal level, sure, you could want everybody to like you, but when it comes to a professional setting, if you try to make everyone like you, all that's going to do is make you give everybody what they want. And that might not necessarily be to your benefit or to the benefit of the organization or to the job that you're trying to do. So I think the best way to combat that is just build up your confidence and believe in yourself.
I think you're totally right. And I ask you the hard questions because I know you're going to give me the great answers, just like everybody else on here. I think we do have a group of women in our organization, and it's showcased here today in this panel, who are confident and can speak up. And it may have taken us a long time to get there. I think we all joke about, I can't wait to be old enough or the age when I don't care what anybody thinks about me, you know, and you don't have to wait for that. You don't have to wait to be Betty White's age to do what you want and say what you want, or what you need, especially. I think we all have that opportunity now, and we need to be confident enough to use it. And I love that the women that I work with, you all are like that. I don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to give me your opinion and your true opinion, because all of you are very outspoken and well-spoken and confident enough in what you know that you can do to give that opinion and sit at the table and say, no, this is it. And your leaders don't look at you like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, because they all trust you. So Devin, I'm going to go to you next. Tell me a moment. We've talked about the Heat and, you know, what it's like working here a little bit, but tell me a moment when you thought, wow, I have a cool job.
So there's been countless of these, as I'm sure everybody can say. And again, I only started 4 years ago as compared to a lot of people on this panel that have been here, you know, some 10 plus years. But I would say the coolest moment for me was when we got Dwayne back, because we were in the office that day. And all I remember is just sitting at my desk and just looking around at everyone. And we were just going nuts. Like, we were going absolutely wild. I was looking at executives that have been here since the inception of the Heat who were also going wild. And it was just so cool for me to be on the opposite side of what everyone is seeing on Twitter during a time like that, and just being a part of this, you know, craziness, and looking over at the creative team who are like, holy, you know, SHIT, we have to build an entire campaign in 24 hours, you know. And it was just like, it was just so cool for me to be there and witness that and be in that rush with everyone, because like I said, you know, being on the outside, you just don't understand the passion sometimes that goes into it on the back end. And being a part of that family at that time was really exciting for me. So coming also, I don't know if Michael McCullough, our CMO, is on this, but I don't know if I've ever told him that, but me coming from an interview with him, literally in the lobby of the Heat, listening how to say Bam Adebayo correctly, thinking that that was gonna help me get a job, to then sitting there when we got Dwayne back was just like, okay, this is so freaking cool that I'm here now. But I had to share that. I hope nobody makes fun of me about that, but I really thought that that was going to be a necessity, that I had to like say Bam's name correctly. I'm not kidding. So it absolutely was not. Just a heads up. He didn't ask me anything roster related. So yeah.
I will tell you that nobody's going to make fun of you, because that's awesome that you actually did the work. I've interviewed people and they're like, when does the season start? So the fact that you're actually doing the work about the business of basketball, nobody's making fun of you for that. And we definitely have some moments where, you know, you have your mundane day to day, but there are some moments like that and experiences that are crazy exciting. And of course, I'm sure Michael is on, because I know he's always watching. So he has a bunch himself, but Shannon has been with the Heat probably as long as I have. Shannon, tell me one of the amazing moments that you've experienced. I know you have a ton throughout the years, but tell me one of the amazing experiences that you've had or moments you've experienced in your role.
I've been able to go to numerous All-Star weekends, a bunch of Hall of Fame ceremonies, hometowns of our players and our coaches, even Mr. Riley, I got to go to his hometown. And we documented a road trip in New York, which was really cool to do all the ins and outs of how the team travels. But I would say my favorite experience was the opportunity to travel to China. In 2012, during the preseason, we played 2 games, one in Beijing and one in Shanghai. And for me, it was first of all amazing to be able to go and experience a different culture. And obviously I'd never been to China. Traveling with the team was really cool. And then documenting, you know, everything that we did, going to the Great Wall for the first time, some with the players that it was their first time on the Great Wall, you know, experiencing that with them was really cool. And then Wade actually kicked off his Leaning Empire that weekend. And so we were able to cover that event and really just for me, seeing the Heat brand, how international it was, and just having the logo or the word Heat, people come up to you and they want to talk to you and they want to be a part of it because our brand is international. And then the cherry on top was coming home and putting together an Inside the Heat episode about that trip and turning around quickly so that our fans got to experience it as well. And it was just something that I will forever be grateful for, and I will never forget.
I was with you on that trip, and that was definitely an amazing experience. Insanity driving into the arena and just all the fans there, or going to events that our players or even like our mascot attended, that people just could not get enough of the Heat. And I think it's like that worldwide. So Sasha, would you say that the Heat is a great or the greatest place to work? And if so, why would you say that?
I feel like this is a setup question.
I mean, there's only one answer, right?
I mean, I've been here for almost 9 seasons, so obviously I hate it. No, but in all seriousness, I feel super fortunate to work in a place where I feel creatively challenged. Collaboration is like super valued here. I can't speak for every single department in our organization, but I know in marketing, we've created a culture that promotes open communication on all levels. I could literally walk into like Michael McCullough's office and be like, hey, can we like figure this thing out really fast? As long as his door is open. If his door is closed, don't go in there. But if the door is open, he is like definitely someone who's like, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's figure this out right now. And he's the CMO. And for that to be kind of the experience that you have, even as like a junior designer, like to be able to just be like, hey, can I talk to you about this? I don't think you get that everywhere. And I know we've all talked about it through this entire conversation, plus many other conversations that we've had and panels that we've had about all of the amazing women leaders that we have here. But I think that we sometimes forget to acknowledge that we also are super lucky to work with men who are like on our side and who are there to be like, no, you deserve to have this conversation. You deserve to be the one who presents this, and you deserve to be the person who rises to this level because you're worthy of it, and because you have put in the work, and because like I believe in you. And I don't think that a lot of people, I mean, you always hope that women will be on your side in that perspective, but it's even nicer when you have men who are there who are like, no, I'm going to help you and I'm going to support you. I know Manny, my art director, shout out to him, that like his goal with our team specifically has always been to like develop our people, like develop our team, make all of our designers the best designers that they can be. And I think now that I have moved up into a position where I'm managing people, that has been like such an important lesson for me to learn, is like looking at what he does and how he wants everyone to be the best versions of themselves. And he wants to be the stairs that you walk on to get to where you're going. And that's how I want to be as a manager too. And I think that, I mean, as cheesy as it is, and I know we always talk about it, but like, we really are all friends, like in the office, we're all friends, we're family. I think that's been the weirdest part about the pandemic, is just like I'm about to order lunch. Do you want to order lunch with me? Or I'm going to go grab a coffee. Do you want to walk over to the arena side with me? Or, hey, I have this idea. Can I talk to you about it? Like, it's like, we really do interact with each other a lot in our office. And so as cool as the job itself is, and as great as that is to have, and to know that I work in a place where I actually like going into work, but I also really like being around the people that I work with. So that's my little
shedding a tear because I ordered a poke bowl today and you weren't there to order with me. So yeah, you're right, that collaboration and that family feeling is important. And I'm gonna invite back the first part of the panel, the rest of our friends, to come on here and close us out with a couple of audience submitted questions and some fun questions I have for you guys, just so people can get to know you a little bit. So Lauren, Pyle, Chrissy, Akira, I'll bring you guys back on. And I think it is important that we talk about the men that we work with. We've shouted out Michael McCullough a couple times. He's my boss. I've reported to him since almost the beginning of my time at the Heat. And I think you touched on something, Sasha, that was one of our audience questions. And it's, what do you think male athletes and leaders can do to help drive the visibility of women in sports? So I'm going to throw it out there. Whoever wants to unmute themselves and answer. Devin, I see you got your hand up, so I'm going to say, go ahead.
Yeah, just something quickly to answer that. I just think, simply put, just advocate for us. I mean, it's really that simple. Like Sasha was saying, we don't really experience that at the Heat. With Michael McCullough, Lorenzo Butler, who's my direct supervisor, we don't experience anything but that, because all they do is advocate for us. They always put us, they're pulling us to the table. They're literally shoving us to go sit with other people, you know, and it's just, we're really lucky when you talk to other organizations, not just in the NBA, but beyond, that don't get to experience things like that and aren't lucky enough to be surrounded by men like that. So I think, just simply put, just keep advocating for women inside of your own organization, and even if they're not inside of your department, but you're seeing what they're doing from an outside perspective, go speak to them. What Akira said, go sponsor them, go just introduce them to people, help them make connections that they wouldn't normally get. I just think that's important. And again, super lucky that we have that, because it helps me further my career. Only being here for 4 years, it's helped me tremendously. So that is all.
I think you're right. That is so important, you know, to have male advocates and allies to support you. If, you know, you don't see yourself in leadership in that level, it's connecting with the people who are in leadership and making sure that they're advocating for you, making sure they're opening the door for you, because there isn't another woman there to open the door. So when you get there, you can open the door for other women who are coming behind you. We have another question from the audience, and anybody can take this. How has your idea of leadership changed throughout your career or your time at the Heat?
I'll take this one because it's something that I recently had a conversation with someone. In the beginning of my career, leadership to me meant that you got to dictate what you wanted, and what you wanted was the only thing that really mattered, and that everyone had to fall in line with what the leader wanted to do. And as I've grown in my career, and as I've continued to develop myself and develop other people that have worked with me, I've learned that a leadership is not dictatorship. It's really just about surrounding yourself with the people that will do the best job. Yes, to help you look good, of course, but to help each other look good as well. And making sure that that team has the ability to communicate with each other, to work together, and to delegate to each other if there's someone else on that team that maybe has a little bit more capability or a little bit more of a skill set than you do. And I think that that's a very important thing to shift your mindset on as you develop in your career and you continue to grow in leadership roles. It's, I want to find the person that's better than me at something, even if that person is going to be working for me, or, you know, I'm going to be managing that person. I want them to be the best at what they do, even if that means they're better at it than I am, because that's only going to elevate everybody else. And that's something that I think you learn with time as you continue to go through your career and develop yourself. But that shift from dictatorship perception to really leadership and getting your hands dirty and making sure that you're willing to do the same work that you're asking of everybody else, I think is a very important quality to have too.
That is a great answer. And we're almost out of time. We did have one question, and it was, what excites you about your company? And I'm going to say, I'm excited about the women leadership in our company. I'm excited about the women coming up. I'm excited about these women on this call who are just killing the game at what they're doing. And it makes me so proud, because I'm like, when I see a piece that Shannon's put out, or artwork that Sasha's done, or, you know, seeing stories about our culinary store, I'm like, I know her. So that is what excites me. And I just thank you ladies for joining us today. I thank you for sharing your words of wisdom. I think you all are incredible. You've offered such important knowledge and advice. And many of you have asked about job opportunities that we have, current job opportunities. So if you're interested in becoming a part of our team, visit heat.com/careers. There are all of our job opportunities, our current openings are posted there. I know we're hiring for some greeters, guest service representatives, box office representatives, various retail operation positions, but everything that we have open is posted there. So if you don't see what you're looking for, sign up for job alerts. We'll alert you when something becomes open that fits your criteria. And once again, a big thank you to all my ladies who joined me this afternoon. It was great hearing from you. I hope everybody gained some valuable insight and you leave us all inspired with what you've heard. So have a great rest of the day. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.